The ancient mother culture might have known how to soften stone. This has to do with ancient architecture, construction. We see this all over the earth, even here in Greece, and we wonder, what is that? How did that happen? Alexander Light of Humans Are Free. Is it possible that thousands of years ago, ancient cultures possessed a now lost technology that allowed them to soften stone? And according to numerous researchers, the answer is yes. Is it possible that the countless megalithic sites around the globe were built with the help of a now lost technology? And why do they want to soften the stone anyway? Maybe it has to do with some type of an earthquake-resistant structure. Now, what if in the distant past, ancient cultures of South America, Asia, Egypt, and even ancient Greece, ancient Israel, other parts of the world, had in their possession an ancient method that allowed them to transport, cut, and mold megalithic stones to their desire? There are numerous inexplicable sites around the globe, and the most noteworthy to mention is Stonehenge, the pyramids of Giza, Ollantaytambo, Pumapunku, Sacsayhuaman, and all of those places ancient mankind managed to show somehow perfectly placed huge blocks of stone weighing hundreds of tons. Now, the construction, this image of Sacsayhuaman, remains a profound mystery for researchers who fail to understand how ancient people managed to quarry, transport, and place these megalithic stones, let alone have them melted like this. Now, these marvelous stones are so heavy that modern-day machinery would hardly be able to move and put them into position, let alone lift them. That is why we ask, is it possible that ancient cultures in Peru and Bolivia had a technology, quote-unquote, that allowed them to modify stone and to soften it? And this would have allowed them to modify and construct huge structures without the need of modern-day tools. According to a number of researchers like Jean-Peter de Jong, Christopher Jordan, and Jesus Camara, some of the granite walls in Cuzco are the ultimate evidence that ancient cultures managed to heat different stones at a very high temperature. This unknown process vitrifies the surface of the blocks, turning them into giant glassy and smooth structures. Now, based on these and other observations, Jong, Jordan, and Gamara concluded that ancient man possessed an advanced device which allowed them to melt stone blocks, which were then placed into position and allowed to cool down next to hard jigsaw polygonal blocks that were already in place, forming an extraordinary puzzle that defies rational understanding today. The end product, perfectly molded stone, would remain fixed against other stones in a nearly perfect manner, giving an impression as if these megalith stones were melted into position. Once fixed, these stones were so precisely placed that not a single sheet of paper could fit in between them. However, researchers like Jong and Jordan believe that not only did cultures in ancient Peru and Bolivia possess the technology of melting stone, they believe that evidence of similar technology can be found all around the globe. If the ancients did in fact have the ability to soften the stone, it would certainly explain the countless ancient structures belonging not only to pre-Inca and Inca cultures, but also to the Mayas, Aztec, Olmecs, and inhabitants that inhabited Central and South America. And before disproving the theory that the ancients had in their possession sophisticated means by which they softened the stone, consider that many of the ancient complexes of the Americas bear incredibly strange markings that could be explained by tooling the surface while it was still soft, quote-unquote. Some of the stones we are discussing are truly immense and are nearly impossible to maneuver into position using today's technologies. Also, it's important to consider that many ancient Inca sites have stones and walls that have up to 12 and 13 perfect angles on their visible surface, and below that and the hidden sections, these stones redefine the word perfect. Better yet is the fact that even with today's extremely advanced technology, it's impossible for engineers and architects to replicate walls such as those found in Sacsayhuaman. Now, all through the Peruvian and Bolivian Montana is to be found a small bird like a kingfisher, which makes its nest in neat round holes in the rocky escarpments above the river. These holes can plainly be seen but are not usually accessible, and strangely enough they're found only when the birds are present. I once expressed surprise that they were lucky enough to find nesting holes conveniently placed for them and so neatly hollowed out as though with a drill. They make the holes themselves. The words were spoken by a man who had spent a quarter of a century in the forest. He says, "I've seen how they do it. Many a time I've seen the birds come to the cliff with leaves of some sort in their beaks and cling to the rock like woodpeckers to a tree while they rub the leaves in a circular motion over the surface. Then they would fly off and come back with more leaves, carry on with the rubbing process. After 3 or 4 repetitions, they dropped the leaves and started pecking at a place with the sharp beaks, and here's the marvelous part, they would soon open out a round hole in the stone. Then off they'd go again, go through the rubbing process with leaves several times before continuing to peck. It took several days, but finally they had opened out holes deep enough to contain their nests. I've been climbing up and taken a look at them, and believe me, a man couldn't drill a neater hole." "Do you mean to say that the bird's beak can penetrate solid rock?" "No, I don't think the bird can get through solid rock. I believe, as everyone who has watched them believes, that those birds know of a leaf with juice that can soften up rock till it's like wet clay. Can you imagine that?" This reference is from Ancient Code, and it's on Humans Are Free by Alexander Light. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.